Hi there, and welcome back to Super English Talks, the place where we talk about important life topics while also helping you improve your English little by little, word by word. I'm really happy you're here with me today because we're going to talk about something that every single person experiences at some point in life: anger. Let me begin with a personal story. A few months ago, I had a long and very tiring day. I was behind on my work, I hadn't eaten, and I was already feeling stressed. Not a great situation, right? Then, out of nowhere, a friend called me and started complaining about something I had forgotten to do. In that moment, I could feel my heart beating faster. My voice got louder without me even thinking about it. And then I said something I didn't mean. Right after the words left my mouth, I regretted it. Has something like that ever happened to you? You don't plan it, you don't want it, but suddenly you snap. You say or do something out of anger. And then afterwards, you wish you could take it back. That's the tricky thing about anger. It sneaks up on us when we least expect it. Here's the truth. Anger is a universal emotion. Everyone feels it. It doesn't matter where you come from, what language you speak, or how old you are. Anger is part of being human. But here's another truth. Most of us were never really taught how to deal with it. Some people hide their anger deep inside. They pretend everything is fine, but inside, the feelings grow stronger. Other people show their anger too strongly, in ways that damage relationships at home, at work, or with friends. But anger is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's a sign that something in our life needs attention. Sometimes it's the push we need to make a change. The important thing is not to deny it or explode with it, but to understand it, manage it, and learn from it. In today's episode, we are not here to blame ourselves for being angry. We are here to look at it calmly and honestly. Together, we'll explore what anger really is, why we feel it, what happens when we ignore it, and how we can handle it in healthy, respectful ways. This is not only about avoiding arguments or fights. It's about becoming more aware of who we are, how we react, and how we can create more peace, self-control, and better communication with others. So, let me ask you something. You don't need to answer out loud. Just think quietly. When was the last time you felt angry? What caused it? And most importantly, how did you react? If you're listening to this podcast, I already know something about you. You want to improve. Not just your English, but also your mindset and emotional intelligence. And that's something you should be proud of. Learning how to deal with anger is not easy, but it's one of the most important skills we can learn in life. So, take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's explore this topic together. By the end of this episode, you'll not only pick up some useful English words and phrases, but you'll also discover new tools to better understand yourself and your emotions. So, are you ready? Let's begin. What is anger really? Now that we've opened the door to this conversation, let's take one step deeper and ask a simple but powerful question. What is anger really? It sounds easy to answer because we all know the feeling of being angry. Your body gets tight. Your voice becomes louder. Your heartbeat speeds up. You may feel heat in your face or tension in your chest. But even though the feeling is so familiar, we rarely stop to think about it clearly. At its core, anger is simply a normal emotional reaction. It's the body and mind's way of saying, something feels wrong here. Anger usually shows up when something feels wrong, unfair, or threatening. Think about it. Maybe someone lied to you. Maybe someone wasted your time or didn't respect your effort. Or maybe you failed at something you worked very hard for. In those moments, your brain senses some kind of danger. Not always physical danger, like an animal attacking you, but an emotional danger. And when your brain feels that kind of threat, it reacts. That reaction is what we call anger. It's your mind's way of sending a message. Something is not okay. Pay attention. Now, just like happiness or sadness, anger by itself is not bad. It's simply an emotion. And emotions are natural. They are signals that help us understand the world and understand our own needs. So the real problem isn't feeling angry. The real problem is what we do with that anger. Some people explode and shout, hurting the people around them. Others keep it inside and never express it, which can make them feel sick, stressed, or even depressed. And some try to ignore it, pretending it doesn't exist. But the truth is, none of these ways truly help in the long run. Did you know that there are actually different types of anger? It doesn't always look the same. Sometimes anger is like fire, quick and hot. It comes suddenly. Maybe you yell, cry, or slam a door, but then it disappears just as quickly. This is often called a short burst of anger. It usually happens when we are surprised or frustrated, like when another driver cuts us off in traffic or when someone says something offensive. This kind of anger feels very strong, but it doesn't always last long. Other times, anger is quiet, but it stays with you. You don't scream or shout, but you carry the heavy feeling inside for days, weeks, or even months. This is called resentment. Resentment often grows slowly, maybe because someone keeps treating you unfairly, or because you never spoke up about how you truly felt. The danger with resentment is that it can change the way you think and act without you even realizing it. It's like carrying a slow poison. It quietly eats away at your peace of mind. Now, let's look at what happens inside your body when you feel angry. On a biological level, anger activates something called the fight or flight response. This is an ancient survival system in the brain. Thousands of years ago, when our ancestors faced real danger, like a wild animal, the brain would tell the body, "Get ready to fight or run away." When this happens, your muscles tighten, your breathing changes, and your heart starts pumping faster. This reaction helped humans survive real threats in the past. But today, most of the threats we face are not physical. They are emotional, things like stress at work, problems in relationships, or the fear of failure. The body still reacts the same way, even when we are not in physical danger. That's why anger can feel so overwhelming. Our brain is sending out emergency signals, even when the situation is not life or death. Now here's an important question. Is anger always bad? At first, many people would say yes. It feels uncomfortable, it causes arguments, it breaks relationships. But if we look more closely, anger also has a purpose. Sometimes anger is a sign that we care deeply about something. It can motivate us to speak up, to take action, or to protect ourselves. For example, if you feel angry because someone treated you unfairly, that anger might give you the courage to set a boundary or defend your self-respect. Anger can also show us what we value most. It can highlight our deepest beliefs, like justice, honesty, or kindness, especially when we see those values being ignored. But here's the key lesson. Anger is not meant to control us. It's meant to guide us. Think of anger like a warning light in a car. When that light comes on, it doesn't mean your car is broken forever. It just means something needs attention. If you ignore the light, the problem might get worse. But if you notice it, understand it, and take action to fix the issue, the car runs better. Anger works in the same way. It's a signal, not a sentence. So instead of seeing anger as something bad or shameful, we can start seeing it as something very human, something that can teach us if we learn to listen. We all feel anger. Nobody is free from it. The real difference is in how we handle it. Do we use anger as a tool to help us grow, or do we let anger use us and control our actions? That's the big question. In the next part of this episode, we're going to dive into something very important: anger management. We'll explore what it really means, where anger comes from, what usually triggers it, and why one situation might make one person very angry but hardly affect another person at all. But before we move forward, take a short moment to reflect. What does your anger usually look like? Do you explode quickly, raising your voice and reacting fast? Or do you hold it inside quietly, carrying it around like a heavy weight? How does your body usually feel when you're angry? Do you feel your chest tighten? Your heart beating faster? Your voice changing? The more you understand your own patterns, the easier it becomes to take back control. And let me say this, you're doing really well. Not only are you improving your English step by step, but you're also growing as a person by reflecting on your emotions. Remember, this journey is not about being perfect. It's about being aware, being honest with yourself, and being willing to grow. What is anger management? Now, let's focus on this important question. What is anger management? You've probably heard this phrase before, maybe in movies, books, or even in real life. But what does it actually mean? Some people think anger management means never getting angry, but that's not true. In fact, that would be impossible. Anger is a normal emotion, and it's part of being human. The goal of anger management is not to erase anger. It's to understand it, manage it, and express it in healthy ways. In simple words, anger management is about staying in control. It means not letting anger control your words, your actions, or your life. Here's an easy way to think about it. Anger is like fire. A small fire in the right place can be very useful. It gives light, it gives warmth, it can even cook your food. But if the fire grows too big, or if it's uncontrolled, it can burn down everything around it. That's exactly how anger works. When managed well, it can guide us and protect us. When unmanaged, it can destroy relationships, opportunities, and peace of mind. So anger management is really about learning to keep the fire at the right level. It's about learning how to respond calmly instead of simply reacting in the heat of the moment. It's about pausing, thinking, and choosing your actions wisely so you don't regret them later. Step 1. Notice the signs. One of the first steps in managing anger is to notice the signs in your body. Anger doesn't appear out of nowhere. It builds up and your body gives you signals. For example, your heart might start beating faster. Your face might feel hot. Your hands might shake. Your voice might get louder. Your breathing might change. If you learn to recognize these signs early, you can step back before your anger grows too strong. You can take a deep breath, pause for a moment, or even walk away from the situation to cool down. That small step can make a huge difference. Step 2. Communicate better. Another key part of anger management is better communication. Many times, we get angry because we don't feel understood. But shouting, blaming, or criticizing others doesn't usually solve the problem. In fact, it often makes the situation worse. That's why learning to express yourself in a calm, clear, and respectful way is so powerful. This is called assertive communication. Assertive communication is not passive, staying silent and saying nothing. It's also not aggressive, shouting, insulting, or threatening. Instead, it's confident, clear, and respectful. Here's an example. Instead of saying, "You never listen to me," which sounds like an attack, you could say, "I feel frustrated when I don't feel heard." See the difference? In the second sentence, you're expressing your feelings clearly without blaming the other person. This simple change can make people much more willing to listen and respond positively. Step 3. Focus on solutions. Finally, anger management is also about problem solving. If something keeps making you angry again and again, ask yourself, what can I do about this? Sometimes you can change the situation itself. For example, if being late always stresses you out, maybe you can plan your time differently. Other times, you can't change the situation, but you can change how you think about it. For example, if someone is always rude, you might not be able to change their behavior, but you can decide not to let their words control your peace of mind. This is where other important skills come in, things like stress management, positive thinking, and self-awareness. These skills give you the strength to face your emotions instead of being controlled by them. Some people also use special tools to work through anger more deeply. For example, journaling, writing your thoughts and feelings in a notebook. Meditation, calming your mind and focusing on the present moment. Step 2. Communicate better. Another key part of anger management is better communication. Many times, we get angry because we don't feel understood. But shouting, blaming, or criticizing others doesn't usually solve the problem. In fact, it often makes the situation worse. That's why learning to express yourself in a calm, clear, and respectful way is so powerful. This is called assertive communication. Assertive communication is not passive, staying silent and saying nothing. It's also not aggressive, shouting, insulting, or threatening. Instead, it's confident, clear, and respectful. Here's an example. Instead of saying, "You never listen to me," which sounds like an attack, you could say, "I feel frustrated when I don't feel heard." See the difference? In the second sentence, you're expressing your feelings clearly without blaming the other person. This simple change can make people much more willing to listen and respond positively. Step 3. Focus on solutions. Finally, anger management is also about problem solving. If something keeps making you angry again and again, ask yourself, what can I do about this? Sometimes, you can change the situation itself. For example, if being late always stresses you out, maybe you can plan your time differently. Other times, you can't change the situation, but you can change how you think about it. For example, if someone is always rude, you might not be able to change their behavior, but you can decide not to let their words control your peace of mind. This is where other important skills come in, things like stress management, positive thinking, and self-awareness. These skills give you the strength to face your emotions instead of being controlled by them. Some people also use special tools to work through anger more deeply. For example, journaling, writing your thoughts and feelings in a notebook. Meditation, calming your mind and focusing on the present moment. Talking to a therapist or a counselor, sharing your experiences with someone trained to help. These methods can help you discover where your anger really comes from. Sometimes it's connected to old experiences, past pain, or negative beliefs we carry about ourselves. When we explore those roots, we can begin to let go of the heavy emotions behind them. The more you understand yourself, the easier it becomes to manage your feelings in a healthy way. So remember, anger management is not only about staying calm. It's about emotional growth. It's about becoming stronger inside and building better, healthier relationships with others. And here's something important. Anger management is a skill. And like any skill, it takes practice. You won't get it right every time. You may still say something in anger that you regret later. But with time, self-awareness, and consistency, You'll start to notice positive changes in the way you react, in the way you communicate, and in the way you feel inside when anger is triggered. Why do we get angry? So far, we've talked about what anger really is, how it's a normal emotion, and how it can appear in different ways. But now let's go deeper and ask an important question. Why do we get angry in the first place? The answer isn't always simple. Sometimes we think we're angry because of one thing happening in the moment. But if we look closer, we discover that something deeper is going on inside. Reason 1, stress. One of the most common reasons people feel angry is simple stress. When we are tired, overworked, or overwhelmed, even small problems feel huge. Imagine this. You've had a long day at work. Your boss gave you more tasks than you can finish. You skipped lunch, and now you're stuck in traffic. Suddenly, another car cuts in front of you without signaling. Boom. You explode. You yell. You hit the horn. Maybe even say something you don't mean. But deep down, you're not only angry about that car. You're angry because you're exhausted and overwhelmed. That one small thing, the car, was just the last straw, the final drop that made the glass overflow. Reason 2, fear. Another reason we get angry is fear, though it may surprise you. Often, anger hides fear underneath. For example, if someone you love is late coming home and they don't call, your first feeling might actually be fear. You're worried something happened. But when they finally walk in the door, you don't usually say, "I was scared." Instead, you say, "Why didn't you call me?" That anger is really fear wearing a mask. And it's often easier to show anger than to admit we feel afraid. This happens a lot, especially in close relationships. Reason 3, insecurity. Insecurity is another big trigger for anger. When we don't feel confident in ourselves, we can react very strongly to things that make us feel small or not good enough. For example, if someone criticizes your work, laughs at your accent, or makes fun of your mistake, you might feel anger immediately. But beneath the anger is usually insecurity, the fear that maybe you really aren't good enough. That fear then transforms into frustration and anger. This is why it's so important to understand what we truly believe about ourselves. If we don't feel strong and secure inside, it's very easy for outside events to make us angry. Reason 4, injustice. Finally, there's unfair treatment, or what we can also call injustice. This one makes a lot of sense. When someone lies to us, treats us badly, or disrespects us, it's natural to feel angry. Our brain and heart both recognize this is not fair. If you've ever been blamed for something you didn't do or passed over for a job you truly deserved, you already know how that kind of anger feels. It burns deep inside. This type of anger often comes from a strong sense of justice, a clear belief in what is right and what is wrong. And when those rules are broken, when fairness is ignored, we feel deeply upset and even hurt. But unfairness isn't the only cause. Let's talk about setbacks. A setback is when something stops your progress or pushes you backward instead of forward. For example, maybe you studied very hard for an exam, but still failed. Or maybe you prepared carefully for a job interview, but didn't get the position. At first, you might feel disappointed. But if that disappointment grows, it often turns into anger. Anger at the situation, at other people, or even at yourself. Setbacks create frustration, and frustration is like a close friend of anger. Now, here's something interesting to think about. What makes one person angry might not bother another person at all. Why? Because of personal and cultural differences. For example, in some cultures, interrupting someone while they're talking is seen as extremely rude, and it can make people very angry. In other cultures, interrupting is normal. It's just part of how people talk, and nobody thinks much about it. The same is true for body language, tone of voice, or even being late. For one person, being late is a big sign of disrespect. For another person, it's no big deal. Even inside the same culture, people can have very different triggers based on their life experiences. Maybe someone grew up in a family where they were often blamed unfairly. As an adult, that person might feel angry very quickly whenever they think they're being blamed, even if no one is really blaming them. Another person might have been taught to always stay quiet, to never express emotions. They push their anger down for years, but one day, it all comes out at once like an explosion. Let's make this more real with an example many of us can relate to. Imagine you're having a conversation. You're trying to explain your opinion, but before you can finish, the other person interrupts you. Not once, but again and again. How do you feel? Annoyed? Disrespected? Maybe even angry? For some people, this situation is a major trigger, especially if they already feel unheard in other areas of life. And this brings us to something very important: understanding your personal triggers, the specific things that push your emotional buttons. So, take a moment to reflect. What usually makes you angry? Is it when people don't listen to you? When life feels unfair? When you're under too much pressure? Or is it connected to past experiences, your upbringing, or even your sense of identity? The more clearly you understand your own triggers, the better prepared you'll be. Because when those moments happen, you'll have a choice. Instead of exploding without thinking, you can pause, take a deep breath, and decide how you want to respond. This is the first step toward emotional strength and better communication. Remember, anger itself is not your enemy. The real challenge is when we don't understand where it comes from. Without that understanding, it controls us. With awareness, we can control it. In the next part of this episode, we'll explore the difference between healthy anger and unhealthy anger. For now, just remember this: every emotion has a story, and behind your anger, there is always something more. So, be curious. Be gentle with yourself and keep learning. Healthy versus unhealthy anger. Let's pause for a moment to look at something really important: the difference between healthy anger and unhealthy anger. That's right, not all anger is bad. Anger itself is simply a natural emotion, just like sadness, happiness, or fear. It's part of being human. And believe it or not, anger can actually be helpful when we understand it and express it in a healthy way. The real problem is not the feeling of anger. The problem is what we do with it. What does healthy anger look like? Healthy anger means we feel the emotion, but we choose how to respond. We don't explode. We don't attack or hurt others. Instead, we communicate our feelings in a clear and respectful way. For example, we might say, "I feel upset when I'm interrupted. I need a short break right now. I'm getting frustrated." When we respond like this, something powerful happens. People understand our boundaries without the situation turning into a big fight. Healthy anger shows respect for ourselves and for the other person. What does unhealthy anger look like? Unhealthy anger happens when the emotion controls us instead of us controlling it. This can take two main forms: exploding outward, yelling, saying hurtful words, slamming doors, or even becoming aggressive. Holding it inside, pretending we're fine while secretly feeling bitter, upset, or resentful for hours or even days. In both cases, the anger is not being managed. In one, it comes out in harmful ways. In the other, it gets buried deep down, where it slowly grows into resentment. Why does unhealthy anger happen? Sometimes unhealthy anger is connected to deeper issues like perfectionism or the need for control. Maybe things didn't go the way we planned, and that makes us feel like we failed. Maybe someone didn't act how we expected, and that feels disrespectful. When we expect everything to be perfect or want to control every little detail, it's easy to get angry at small things. Think about it. Have you ever lost your cool over something minor, only to realize later that the real reason was stress or pressure that had been building up for a while? This is very common. The danger of quick reactions. Some people also react very quickly, without taking time to think. This impulsive behavior can make anger dangerous. Sometimes, just one sharp word, one angry text, or one big reaction is enough to hurt a friendship, damage a relationship, or create long-lasting conflict. That's why learning to slow down, notice the signs, and respond thoughtfully is such an important part of emotional growth. Keeping anger healthy. That's why we often hear phrases like, bite your tongue, which means stop yourself before saying something you might regret. Take a step back, which means give yourself space before responding. Cool off, which means calm down before you talk or act. These little sayings carry big wisdom. Pause before reacting. So, how do we actually keep our anger healthy? It all comes down to awareness and a few simple strategies. The first step is to pause. The moment you feel that emotional heat rising, stop. Don't react right away. Instead, take a few slow, deep breaths. This short pause helps calm your body's physical reaction and gives your brain a chance to think clearly. The second step is to name the emotion. Ask yourself, what am I really feeling? Is it frustration? Fear? Embarrassment? Often, simply naming the feeling takes away some of its power. Another helpful trick is to see yourself from the outside. Imagine this situation was happening to a close friend. What advice would you give them? Would you tell them to yell, slam doors, or say something hurtful? Probably not. You'd likely suggest they step away, calm down, and talk later. The truth is, we often know how to guide others, but we forget to guide ourselves. In the end, healthy anger is not about staying silent or pretending everything is fine. It's about being honest, respectful, and aware. You can be angry and still be kind. You can feel strong emotions and still make thoughtful choices. So the next time something gets under your skin, remember these steps. Pause. Breathe. Name it. Choose your response. Because managing anger isn't about being perfect. It's about being in control of your reaction, rather than letting your reaction control you. The cost of uncontrolled anger. Now, let's shift to the other side of the story. What happens when we don't manage our anger well? Let's be honest, we've all been there. We've all had moments when we lost it. Maybe it happened during an argument, in a meeting, or even with someone we deeply care about. In those moments, it feels like anger is in control, not us. And when anger controls our actions, it often leaves behind damage. Sometimes we can repair it. Sometimes, sadly, we can't. Let's start with relationships. When anger goes unchecked, it creates distance. Imagine yelling at someone you love. The words come out fast, maybe even harsh. You say things you don't truly mean just because you were upset in that moment. Then comes the silence. That heavy feeling afterwards. Maybe they walk away. Maybe you do. Even if you apologize later, something has shifted. The trust isn't the same. Trust is like a sheet of paper. Once it's crumpled, you can try to smooth it out, but it will never be exactly the same again. Here's a question to think about. Have you ever said something in anger that you wished you could take back? The cost of uncontrolled anger. Have you ever said something in anger that you later regretted? I know I have. Most people have. It's part of being human. But here's the problem. When it happens too often, people begin to feel unsafe around us. They may avoid conversations, stop sharing their feelings, or even walk on eggshells, always trying not to trigger our temper. Over time, uncontrolled anger doesn't just release energy, it builds walls. And sometimes, all we really wanted was to feel heard or understood. And it's not just personal relationships that suffer. Anger can also damage our careers. Imagine being in a job interview or sitting in a team meeting. If you can't handle criticism or pressure without snapping, people notice. It creates a negative image. You might be incredibly talented, but if you're known for losing your temper, slamming doors, raising your voice, or firing off angry emails, it overshadows everything else. People remember how you made them feel, not just what you said. And in today's world, emotional intelligence is just as important as technical skills. If coworkers see you as too difficult or too unpredictable, opportunities can slip away. Promotions pass you by. Isolation creeps in. Then there's the physical cost. Yes, anger doesn't just live in your mind. It shows up in your body. Every time you lose your cool, your system goes into fight or flight mode. Your heart races, your muscles tense, your blood pressure spikes. If this happens often, it wears your body down. Over time, unchecked anger can lead to headaches, insomnia, a weakened immune system, or even serious issues like heart disease. And anger doesn't just harm you physically. It can also drive risky behavior. Maybe you drive too fast, drink too much, or lash out in ways you wouldn't normally. And once those choices are made, they can't be undone. A single angry moment can ruin a friendship and a career, or change your life forever. That's why pausing matters. A few deep breaths now can save you a lot of regret later. Let me share something personal. A few years ago, I had an argument with a close friend. I was tired, frustrated, and felt misunderstood. Instead of listening, I snapped. I let my anger lead. I said things that cut deep. We didn't speak for months afterward. Yes, we eventually forgave each other, but our friendship was never quite the same. That experience taught me something powerful. Sometimes controlling your anger means protecting something much more valuable, your connection with others. Now, I'm not saying you should never feel angry. That's not realistic. Anger is natural. But when it becomes our automatic reaction, every time we feel hurt, stressed, or disrespected, it becomes dangerous. It controls us, instead of us controlling it. And that's when real damage happens. The good news is this. Anger can be managed. We can train ourselves to spot the early signs, take a pause, and choose better responses. It's not about never feeling angry. It's about learning to use anger wisely instead of letting it use us. Mindset shift. Anger as a messenger. It takes practice, of course, just like learning English. You don't master it in one day, but with time and awareness, it becomes easier. So next time you feel anger rising, ask yourself, is this really worth it? Will I still care tomorrow? Will my words build something or break something important? That moment of reflection can be the difference between losing control and growing stronger. Now, let's take this one step further. So far, we've talked about the negative effects of uncontrolled anger, how it can damage relationships, careers, and even our health. But here's a surprising idea. What if anger isn't always the enemy? What if, instead of trying to hide it or push it away, we could actually learn from it? You see, anger isn't just noise or fire. It's also a message, a signal that something important is happening inside you. Maybe it means a boundary has been crossed. Maybe it shows that you feel disrespected. Or maybe it's pointing to something in your life that isn't working the way it should. When we start to approach anger with curiosity, we can ask, what is this feeling trying to tell me? That small shift in thinking from I shouldn't feel this way to why do I feel this way opens the door to emotional intelligence. That's the skill of not only managing your own emotions, but also understanding the emotions of others. Think about it. Imagine you're in a meeting and someone interrupts you. On the surface, it seems like a small thing. But if you look deeper, the anger might be telling you that you don't feel respected, or maybe that you've been feeling invisible in other areas of your life too. Anger is shining a light on what really matters to you. And that's not weakness. That's wisdom. In fact, anger can help us grow. Let's say you're constantly frustrated at work because people keep piling on tasks without asking. If you ignore it, that anger just builds. But if you listen to it, you might realize it's time to set boundaries, to speak up, and to protect your time and energy. In that moment, anger becomes your teacher. This idea isn't new. It shows up in many cultures. In Buddhism, for example, anger isn't seen as evil, it's seen as energy. The goal isn't to destroy it, but to understand it. The Buddha taught that emotions like anger can actually lead us toward awareness if we're willing to look closely. In Stoic philosophy, the ancient thinkers believed that anger comes from wishing reality were different than it is, and that by accepting what we cannot control, we can feel peace instead of rage. One quote I love is from Seneca, the Stoic philosopher. He said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." That means when anger rises, the answer isn't to react, it's to pause. Take a breath. Listen. Ask what the anger is trying to tell you. Because anger itself is not a bad emotion. It's a messenger. And when we learn to hear the message, we can respond with clarity instead of chaos. Practical strategies to manage anger. Understanding your anger is the first step. But the real question is, what do you do in the moment when it shows up? Because even if you know why you're angry, that doesn't always stop you from snapping, shouting, or saying something you'll regret. That's why having a few simple tools can really help. 1. Breathe. When we get angry, our body goes into fight or flight mode. The heart races, the muscles tense, and the mind spins. The fastest way to calm this down is with breathing. Try box breathing. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, then hold for 4. Repeat a few times. It's amazing how quickly it can calm your body and brain. 2. Pause before reacting. This means giving yourself just a few seconds before you respond. When someone cuts you off in traffic or your partner forgets something important, stop for a moment. Ask yourself, is this really worth losing my peace? That short pause can save you from saying or doing something you'll regret. 3. Write it down. Journaling can help if you often feel angry or stressed. You don't need to write a full diary, just a few lines. Know what happened, how you felt, and what you wish you had done differently. Over time, you'll see patterns. Maybe you always get upset when you're tired, hungry, or after long meetings. Knowing your triggers helps you prepare. Managing anger. A simple approach. Let me share a quick story. A friend of mine works in a high-stress office and used to get angry at small things, a colleague interrupting her, a rude client, even bad coffee. She started carrying a small notebook. Every time she felt upset, she wrote 1 or 2 lines about it. That small habit helped her slow down, think, and sometimes even smile at how minor the problem was. She said, "It doesn't fix everything, but it gives me back my power. the power to choose how I respond. That's the kind of control we're aiming for. Not perfection, just progress. You won't always get it right. You might still lose your cool sometimes. That's okay. What matters is that you're trying and learning. Managing anger is like training a muscle. One workout won't make you strong, but regular small efforts will. Each time you pause instead of snapping, breathe instead of blaming, or reflect instead of reacting, you're building emotional strength. Pick one technique to try today. Deep breathing during a stressful moment. Writing a few thoughts in your journal tonight. Noticing irritation early and giving yourself permission to pause. The goal isn't to never feel anger, it's to respond in a healthier, wiser way. Step-by-step technique to manage anger. You don't need to be a monk or a scholar. Anyone can try this. Step 1. Awareness. Notice when anger starts. Your heart might race, your face might feel hot, or your voice might rise. Catching it early makes it easier to manage. Step 2. Pause. Take a deep breath. Step away if possible. You don't have to fix the problem immediately, just slow down. Even small actions like washing your face or sitting down can help. Step 3. Name your feeling. Instead of just saying, "I'm angry," try to be specific. "I feel disrespected," "I feel frustrated," or "I feel hurt." Anger often covers deeper emotions like sadness or fear. Naming the real feeling gives you more control. Step 4. Reflection. Ask yourself, why am I angry right now? What happened before this? What am I really reacting to? These questions help you look deeper. Is it about this one moment, or is it connected to past experiences or general stress? Step 5. Choice. This is where your real power lies. Once you understand your anger, you can choose how to respond. Speak calmly. Walk away. Wait until you've cooled down. Remember, you are not your anger. You are the one deciding how to act. Step 6. Release. After handling the situation, let the anger go. Holding on to it can turn into bitterness. You can talk about it. Write it down. Pray, meditate, or take a walk. Letting go doesn't mean ignoring what happened. It means giving yourself peace. Step 7. Practice. Managing anger takes time and repetition. You won't get it right every time, and that's okay. The goal is progress, not perfection. Every pause, deep breath, and reflection builds emotional strength. When we control anger, we create space for wisdom, connection, and peace. Feeling anger isn't weakness. Choosing your response is strength. What gets in the way? Even with simple tools, we don't always manage anger perfectly. Why? Some common obstacles. 1. Perfectionism. Thinking we must always get it right or that feeling angry is bad. Believing mistakes are weakness. This pressure can make anger worse because we push ourselves too hard. 2. Self-doubt. Feeling like we don't have the right to speak up. Maybe expressing emotions was discouraged in your family, or you were told being angry makes you too emotional. Suppressing anger can lead to stress, sadness, or even physical pain. Understanding barriers to managing anger. Self-doubt makes us question our own feelings. Is this really important? Am I overreacting? This makes it harder to trust ourselves and respond confidently. Shame tells us something is wrong with us just because we feel angry. It can make us hide our feelings, avoid conversations, or turn anger inward. Shame often comes from being punished, laughed at, or criticized for expressing emotion. Cultural and social pressures also play a role. Different groups have different messages about anger. Men may be told showing sadness is weak, so they show pain through anger. Women may be told anger is unattractive or aggressive, so they stay quiet. Some cultures expect open expression of strong emotions. Others value calm and politeness. These pressures, perfectionism, self-doubt, shame, and cultural expectations can make it hard to use strategies like pausing, breathing, or walking away. Breaking the cycle. Ask yourself, what stops me from handling anger differently? Fear of judgment? Worry about losing control? Lack of role models for healthy emotional habits? The key is self-compassion. Treat yourself like you would a friend. When you slip up, say, "It's okay. I'm learning. I can try again next time." Patience is important. Real change takes time. Some days you'll handle anger well. Other days, old patterns may resurface. That's normal. The important part is showing up, trying, and learning. You're not broken, you're human. Simply thinking about handling anger more wisely is already a sign of growth. Closing thoughts on anger management. Anger is a natural part of being human, just like joy, sadness, or fear. The key isn't to eliminate it, but to understand it and choose how to respond. We explored what anger is, quick bursts or slow-burning frustration. Biology. The fight-or-flight response prepares us to protect ourselves. Its purpose. Anger isn't always bad. It can teach, signal, and protect. Triggers. Stress, injustice, feeling ignored, or past experiences. Hidden emotions. Anger often masks fear, sadness, or hurt. Costs of unmanaged anger. Damaged relationships, hurt careers, and health problems. We emphasize progress, not perfection. Pausing, breathing, and reflecting before reacting strengthens emotional intelligence and gives you more control. Anger can be a messenger, pointing to what needs attention, like boundaries, fairness, or personal truths. Practical tools include deep breathing, journaling, walking away to cool down, pausing before speaking. We also explored barriers, perfectionism, self-doubt, shame, and cultural or social pressures. Managing anger requires healing inside as well as outside. Personal takeaway: anger doesn't mean weakness. It often signals that we care about fairness, respect, and being heard. Listening to that deeper message allows growth instead of reaction. Action step. Take 5 to 10 minutes to breathe and reflect. What does my anger try to tell me? Or write about the last time you felt angry. What happened? What were you really feeling? And what could you do differently next time? If that feels big, start small, like taking one deep breath before responding when annoyed. One pause. One step toward emotional clarity. Thank you for taking this time to explore anger management and emotional growth. I know anger isn't always an easy topic, but I hope this conversation helped you feel a little more understood and a little more in control. Remember, this is a journey. It's okay to take it one day at a time. Be patient with yourself and keep learning. That's how real change happens. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing it with someone who might benefit. And don't forget to follow Super English Talks for more episodes on personal growth, communication, and building confidence, all while improving your English. Next time, we'll explore self-discipline, what it really means, how to build it without burning out, and why it's more about kindness than control. I hope you'll join me. Until then, take care of yourself and remember, progress, not perfection.